Good day and welcome to another edition of Caribbean Music Line, where we're discussing rights, property rights concerning music. Of course, that's the name of the show. And with me, as usual, none other than President and founder of the WMCAC Music Recording Label and the WMCAC Music Publishing Act Company, ASCAP, right? Mr. Trevor Edwards.
Good.
Mr. Edwards,
Pleasure.
of course,
Yeah.
pleasure to have you on the show, man.
Sure.
Yeah, man. So we're discussing today, we started the show with property rights and intellectual rights in terms of music. And we're going to get into another right that many people within the industry don't seem to recognize can bring them quite some revenue, which is neighboring rights.
Right. Okay.
So just let our viewers know what is neighboring rights before we get into the meat of the matter.
All right. Well, again, Adrian, it's a pleasure to be here. And it is always good when we could document some of the stuff so that we're able to share it. So I would share related rights or neighboring rights, a right that is in certain respects resemble copyright. The purpose of related rights is to protect the legal interests of certain persons who contribute to making the work available to the public. One obvious, or some of the obvious individuals are like the singers, the musicians, the performers of the composers who work in public. So generally, neighboring rights is geared to individuals who contributed to the
final product.
To the final product. In other words, they helped in some way the author or the composer's work to be finalized, and so they have a right to be there.
All right. So let's see if we can just name a few. You have additional musicians.
Yeah, you have, okay, let's itemize them. You have the musicians,
right?
You have the background vocalist, you have the producer, you have possibly the executive producer, and any other individual who contribute to the production. It could be interchange from the producer to the engineer. So we have these individuals who have assisted in the development of this particular work, the work of the author, the work of the composer. And that is neighboring rights or related rights. And I particularly feel that these individuals over the years, either, like I said, lack of knowledge, lack of information, don't know that they should be part, or they can collect some kind of remuneration or royalty in this case for just being part of the production.
Of course, now when that transfers over to live productions, in terms of like a live performance, does that number grow as well? Would you include things like the manager? Would that include
not necessarily. If the manager or the sound engineer is part of the group of individuals that I call there, they have a right to collect some kind of royalty payment if they fit the category. Yeah, as long as they could fit the category. An engineer could fit the category. The engineer could be the producer. The producer could also be a background vocal. It's depending on how the pieces, the jigsaw puzzle comes together, so that they will be able to know that their right, this is what my right is, right? The executive producer, obviously, he has a total right. I mean, he paid for it. Everything belonged to him. Money went out. So the executive producer have a right to the production in itself. So these are the individuals who can be collecting royalties from a related rights or neighboring rights organization.
All right. Well, since you brought that up, I know a few of the viewers may want to know if there probably may be a neighboring rights organization which they can go to in terms of dealing with their rights. Does such an organization exist?
Yeah, and I know, yes, and that the organization exists in the Caribbean. I think in Trinidad and Tobago, possibly Barbados and probably Jamaica. And these countries, Grenada, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica, and including, I think, St. Lucia, they are the catalysts for the copyright organizations. But there might be, and I know for a fact that there are some of those organizations in the Caribbean. So individuals who are musicians, background vocals, producers, they could now go to the organizations, because the copyright organization, they do not necessarily register or sign producers. They only work with the authors, the composers, and probably the publishers, right? In the Caribbean, I think you have a producer who interchanges from a producer to a composer. So if he's a producer and cannot join one of the PROs, then obviously he has to become a composer, or he has to become an author to join, or he has to have a publishing company to join. But the related rights organization, a producer could go and be part of, a background vocals, a musician, etc.
But assuming he doesn't or he can't do that, would he be exempted then from collecting rights and royalties from a regular PRO?
Yes, he would, because the PROs, the regular performing rights organization, do not necessarily register musicians. So if you go to a PRO, you cannot put musicians. Okay, I'm a music publisher with ASCAP. When I am registering a song or a recorded piece of works with ASCAP, is either the author, the composer, author-composer, publisher.
One of those four.
One of those. So I'm saying that the producer has to become an author or composer or a publisher. Otherwise, there's nothing for him. The musician who played the guitar, who played the saxophone, they cannot go to a PRO and register. They will ask you, are you the author? Are you the composer? Right? Are you a publisher? So the related rights organizations or the neighboring rights organization, those are the organizations that he or she could become members of. And to become a member, obviously, they will have their own criteria as to what is required for membership.
All right, so one final question before we go into our first break. A producer, you said, unless he composes, if he sits down and he composes the track, but many producers aren't composers. They just put together the song, listen bit by bit.
Well, yes and no, because, Adrian, let's use us as an example. You're an author. You come to me, who is a music producer. You come to the studio and you interact with me, and I might recognize, well, you didn't compose your music. So I would say, Adrian, then, I'm composing your melody, because you did not come with it. You come with your poetry, and I have to now take your poetry and put the structure in place. So I could be the producer and also be the composer. So we have to be very careful of the roles, because at the end of the day, each individual role has their percentage.
All right, fair enough. So, interesting first bit. We're going to wrap up quickly, take a short break, and come right back in. This discussion is fast over, but keep it here. More on Caribbean Music Line.